I jump on a lot of growth consults with roofing contractors doing more than 2.5 million a year or more. And one of the biggest reasons and the biggest things that I see that stops a lot of them from actually growing to that 8-figure scale is this specific topic that I'm going to talk about today. And for some context as to who I am, my name is Manny Assad and I'm the CEO and co-founder at Roof Ignite. We help with my team. Essentially what we do is we're an advertising agency who helps roofing contractors doing more than 2.5 million a year or more scale and add 7 figures in roof jobs over a 12-month period. Now, I would say that my team and I were fairly qualified to speak on this topic because of the amount of sheer volume of people we help. Now, that being said, I want to go back to what I was talking about in the beginning. Why most roofing companies never break the 7-figure ceiling. And the number one reason for it is math. The simple answer, yes. A lot of these people are not doing math. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's talk about it. They simply don't run their numbers. They don't calculate their ROI. They don't calculate their ROAS. And then essentially, they never sit down and see, hey, what's my cost per qualified appointment? What's my return on investment? They never do that. And it's crazy. It's really important to know how much it's costing you to get somebody through the door. Because then if you take the average ticket per deal, the average profit margin, the gross profits, the net profits, then you're figuring out how much money you're actually making. If that channel is working for you, then you want to pour more money into it. But if you have no data, if you're not doing the math, you can't really know, well, should I scale this or should I just stop? And that's the thing that I see all the time. It's like these roofers are running their own wheels. Essentially, I see them coming year after year doing the same thing over and over because they're never really doing math with one channel that they know works. Now, the point is, yes, there are sometimes people who don't have a proper channel, and that's why companies like us exist, to create that one channel. But there's also people who have a channel that's doing fantastic, and they essentially don't utilize it to its maximum potential. Let me give you an example of a call that I was on with a guy. Let's just call him John Doe, for the sake of this video. I was on a call earlier last week, and essentially this guy jumps on a call with me. It was a growth consult to see how I can help grow his company. Now, one of the first things I always do when I help on these calls is I ask people, okay, if you're trying to grow your company, I guess how are you getting most of your work right now? And this specific gentleman, he told me that he's getting most of his work through Facebook and Instagram advertising. The first question I ask him is, okay, no problem. What's your cost per qualified appointment? And to my surprise, he actually knows his numbers. He tells me that his cost per qualified appointment is actually $165 to $185. So then I ask him, okay, that sounds pretty good. I guess how much are you spending on your ads? He says roughly about $3,500 a month on ads. So this guy's spending about $120, $125 a day on his ads on Facebook. Seems pretty reasonable. And I ask him, so essentially you're getting 18 to 19 appointments, somewhere around there. And he says, yeah, actually I am getting 18 to 19 qualified appointments. I'm like, great, what's your closing rate? To my surprise, he knows his closing rate. He says that we track our closing rates pretty accurately with a sales consultant agency. And apparently they are closing at 39%. So you're wondering, Manny, why are you leaning in? Why are you so curious? Well, here's the thing. If you're closing at 39% and your numbers sound pretty good. I guess I asked him, what's your average ticket per deal? He told me that it's 18.5 thousand. Okay, there's still one thing that we didn't check, which is his gross and net profits. I asked him, hey, John, what's the gross profit for your company? John tells me he's making 45% gross profits. And I clarify, I'm like, is that gross or is that net profits? And he says that we take that home. We don't have a lot of overhead. So I'm sitting over here. I'm like, well, you're on a call to get help. I guess what's the biggest challenge you're facing, man? And he's like, well, now that I think about it, I guess I'm not really facing a challenge. And so we run the numbers together. I just want to make sure that I clarify to him. So we run the numbers, and here's what they look like. I have it pulled out on my computer over here. But just for numbers' sake, this guy is closing 7 deals out of his 18 to 19 appointments. He's making a total of $129,000 in revenue. and he's making $58,000 in profit. Yes, you heard that right. $58,000 in profit off a $3,500 ad spend. And my question was to him, what's stopping you from just scaling that? Why do you need more help, right? And his response, he took a good second to think. He said, well, I guess, Manny, you're right. Well, I guess, why am I not scaling, right? And so the reason I'm telling you this, the whole point with the story is that a lot of the times people like John are stopping themselves from actually growing their companies because they're not doing math. They don't simply sit down one time and look at their numbers on a spreadsheet or on a Google Doc and say, oh shit, I'm not getting results, or oh shit, I'm getting great results, maybe I should bump up my ad spend, right? They never do this. And so this is the trap of the seven-figure contractor. They got stuck in this loop of running their own wheels and looking for another company when what you already have is working so well. Why don't you just scale it up, right? So my recommendations to John was, hey John, instead of coming to me for help, what I want you to do is take the numbers and take everything you have right now and just scale it up, man. Why are you here with me? I mean, like, just go and scale, double your ad spend. And so my first recommendation was go from 3.5K to 7K, right? See how that responds. And I told him, hey John, be careful because you might run into things like ad fatigue, etc. And you want to make sure that you're communicating with your marketer to continue to get the same results, right? Now, for you guys as roofers, the reason I'm telling you all this is because I want you to know if you're not doing math right now in your business, it's important that you start tracking. Because the reality is if you're doing 7 figures in roof jobs, well, maybe you could do 8 if you just did the math and saw, okay, maybe Google is your best performing channel. Why don't you pour more money into it, right? If you don't have a channel, obviously that's a different topic to talk about, but that's the reason why these contractors who get stuck at 3, 4, 5 million never actually scale, right? Some of them, they don't have sustainable systems, of course, like I said again. But a lot of them also are essentially running their own wheels and they're lying to themselves and not doing the math, right? And they're simply not aware of the possibilities. So that being said, right, one of the biggest takeaways we can have from this conversation with me is do the math in your business. Find out what your cost per qualified appointment is. Find out what your closing rate is. Find out how much it costs to acquire a customer. Something called CAC, and I always mention this to people. People don't know their CAC, right? They don't know what their cost to acquire a customer is. With this specific gentleman that I was talking to and the example that I used, his cost to acquire a customer would have been somewhere in the 400, 500s. And all that means is that to get one customer, it would have cost him $500. It would have cost him $500, right? And so now I know that number. I can just keep scaling. I'll just put more 500, 500, 500 until I can scale and get to that 8-figure point where I am making $10 million a year, right? And it's not rocket science. A lot of business is ultimately math, and so figuring out your numbers is the biggest thing. So the lesson that I want to leave you with is if you're not doing numbers, make sure you're doing your numbers now. Start calculating those metrics that I said. There's a lot more that goes into it, but you can start calculating those. And ultimately, that's going to help you as a business owner scale further, right? And that's the thing that I want to leave you guys off with. Now, if you don't have a system, right, to be able to do math with, that's a different topic, right? And if again you do need somebody to help you build that system, my team and I at Roof Ignite, we help contractors who already have sales and production processes figured out, scale and actually sustainably grow their businesses. And if you are possibly one of those people who needs a new system and you have that infrastructure in place, you could reach out to us to see if getting our possible help would even make sense for you. And yeah, that's really what I would say. Do the math, and if you need a system, find somebody that can get you to that place, right? Find somebody who can build you a system that you can do the math with. Yeah. If you guys enjoyed this video, I appreciate if you subscribe to my channel. Do the thing, and I'll see you in the next one.